is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I am Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host Smitty. Be sure to go follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. While you're listening to the show, go check out the description. We've got a Facebook link for everything custom design. Our friend Haley Wagner's small business that does customized clothing. You can get some customized Around the 412 merch. You can also get some customized holiday stuff. She does a ton of holiday stuff, and Easter's coming up. And it's sooner rather than later, but I'm sure she's got something going on for us. So go check out the Facebook link that we've got in there, and she can hook you up. This is the Around the 412 Steelers show. And boy, oh boy, has a lot happened since we last spoke. We knew about Russell Wilson. We knew about Patrick Queen. But man, I did not think that the last 2 weeks has changed the outlook of this franchise just from a visual perspective so much from what's going on in the locker room and on the field. You put out a couple videos because I was not available.
Yes.
So on Friday, 2 hours or maybe a little bit more after Russell Wilson's initial press conference as a Steeler, it comes out that Kenny Pickett is traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, which completely negated everything that we talked about as far as like Russ and him, whether it's competition and everything like that. And then, to our delight, literally a day later, they trade for Justin Fields. And
first reported by Pittsburgh Sports Now, by the way, Nick Farabaugh.
First reported by Pittsburgh Sports Now. Shout out to Nick Farabaugh, our boy. Go check out his stuff. He's got very good stuff. I can't believe that not only just one of them, but both of those things that everybody was talking about in the offseason came true. That Russell Wilson is a Pittsburgh Steeler. Also, Justin Fields is a Pittsburgh Steeler. And what's even crazier than that is Kenny Pickett is not a Pittsburgh Steeler. And it is completely changed the outlook of this franchise. You got your opportunity to talk about it, so I just wanted to share my 2 cents to open this up before we get into some questions.
Before you do that, can I give a verbal basically meme here of what I posted? Put on X, it was like tired. Justin Fields or Russell Wilson to compete with Kenny Pickett. Wired. Justin Fields and Russell Wilson with no Kenny Pickett. And that's exactly how it played out. Also, I was in a X space on Monday, and I said Kenny Pickett was going to ask for a trade. So,
well, would you look at that? Yeah, I was tweeting. I tweet a meme of Cam Hayward looking at Kenny Pickett, and I had Omar Khan looking at Russell Wilson and Justin Fields over the weekend. I also created.
You like never tweet from Around the 412. So like anytime that I get notifications for Around the 412 when I haven't posted anything, I'm like so thrown off. But like when you do, it's typically like a meme like that.
Yeah. And I also made the deep fried meme with laser eyes of Omar Khan that just says, "Congrats, Bozo. Your team just got fleeced by Omar Khan." I'm just going to use that all the time, just so for future reference when you get notifications on a trade or something that happened. But yeah, let me just backtrack. I'll talk about Kenny Pickett first. Obviously, that happened first. Him wanting a trade, it's not that surprising to me. Now, I know that there was a lot of disgruntlement in the room with Kenny Pickett. It seems like this trade, and maybe you have more insight on this, but this trade has been kind of shaped to as it is. It wasn't necessarily management wanting to move on from Kenny Pickett as it was so much of the locker room losing faith in Kenny Pickett and Kenny Pickett not wanting to be here. That's ultimately what it turned out to be. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, 100%. I think, I mean, they never, that's why we'll talk about the Fields thing in a little bit, but their interest in Justin Fields was on and off. They were interested, signed Russell Wilson, weren't interested, had to trade Kenny Pickett out of necessity, were interested again. So it basically all happened within 24 hours, the Justin Fields stuff reigniting and then trading for him. But yeah, with Pickett, he didn't take well to Russ being here. And if you go back to last year, the whole Seattle game thing, which again, I will stand by happening. Everything that's kind of happened with Kenny Pickett's missteps along the way, it shouldn't be surprising. I think it's more evidence of, I don't want to say who he is. I hope the best for him in Philadelphia, But like the more and more that comes out, like once Russell Wilson signed, he canceled the trip with the receivers that he had to like throw with them, which would have been what, like just George Pickens and Calvin Austin anyway. So I don't know what that was going to be like. But the way that he's kind of approached everything here has left us with a lot of questions within Kenny, which is why the Monday before he got traded, I said it would not surprise me if he requests a trade. Now, the timing of it surprised me because I thought it could maybe be something where we go into camp, he sees the way that this is playing out, and then requests a trade. I didn't think it was going to happen the time that it did, but it didn't surprise me that it happened. So, no, this organization certainly did not have plans of trading Kenny Pickett. But I'll be honest, they came out on the other side of it smelling like daisies because when you trade Kenny Pickett and I know that they traded a fourth along with it, but you move up to pick 98, get another day 2 pick, and then add 2 2025 sevenths to your draft capital as well. And then you move just a conditional 6th for Justin Fields. I mean, you're reshaping the room in my opinion for the better.
Yeah, you are. And I think the crazy thing to me was, what did Kenny expect to happen in a sense? Obviously, they could have brought in somebody else than Russell Wilson, but Kenny Pickett was the only quarterback on the roster. So would he have had this reaction with anybody they would have brought in? They had to sign somebody. But right. I understand that Russell Wilson is a different fish than anybody else that they could have brought in. Russell Wilson, you're not going to bring him in and expect him to really compete for the job. Even that he was going to be the starter. Well, because that was the allure for him coming here. I mean, like nobody seemingly, and the Steelers obviously fall into that. No team around the league was offering him any money pushed like into 2025. No matter where he went, it seemed like it was going to be specifically for 2024. Meets with the Giants, and then he doesn't leave Pittsburgh and go meet anywhere else. That to me told me, okay, they've made some type of guarantee here for him to be the starter, at least. If you're not adding any money to his contract, I can't see why Pittsburgh would have been the best situation for him. But now it makes sense because they very clearly told him, okay, even if it was going to be a pseudo competition or whatever you want to frame it as, Kenny Pickett would have been switching spots from where he was last year in the competition. And I say competition in quotes because this was always going to be Russell Wilson's job, or at least he was going to get the first crack at it. That's a very best case scenario. What I will give you, if you want to tell me it was going to be a competition, Russell Wilson's 1A and Kenny Pickett was 1B. At the very best case for Kenny Pickett. Yeah, I agree with that, and I think it's a shame in a sense that like I have nothing against Kenny Pickett as a guy. I think he's a good guy, but and I'm still a fan of his. I hope he has good success in Philadelphia behind Jalen Hurts. But also like watching Pitt and being a Pitt fan and having that connection to Kenny Pickett, like obviously I wanted him to do well, but the way things played out, it's not surprising to me that this is the way that it got. This is the point that it got to, especially after the Russ signing and seeing how the end of last season played out with like, is he healthy? Is he not healthy? Is he going to be the backup? Is he not going to be the backup? Like what kind of attitude does Kenny Pickett have towards the team to this day? And someone posted it on X too of the video of him when he was asked the question, like, has him being on the sideline given him any perspective or like a different perspective from his point of view? And he's just like, no. And it was just like a one-word answer. And that was it. It was like, I understand like and he was the person that tweeted it said like that was like the moment that he didn't really want Kenny Pickett anymore. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but I do understand that. I think you could look at that video and see that like something wasn't right.
It seemed unkenny like at that point because
it was frustration.
While I agree that there's probably not much for him to learn specifically at the sideline, like in the press box, sure, because you're getting a different point of view and going back and watching film. Sure. And that would be typically how Kenny Pickett, you would feel like, would answer. It was like, maybe not specifically from the sideline, but give a more elaborated answer as opposed to just saying no. Like that was to me why it was weird. Because I don't necessarily disagree with him saying no to him not being able to learn anything right in that moment from the sideline. But I was just surprised he didn't expand upon his answer more.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the Kenny Pickett trade was a shock. It was funny because even in Russ's Russ's
Yeah,
press
right.
conference, he's mentioned that he texted Kenny Pickett.
Mhm.
2 hours later, he's traded.
I immediately had the vision of that meme where like the guy's putting on a mask that's smiling,
Yeah,
but behind it he's just like pissed off.
yeah.
And that was
But then
Kenny in that moment texting him.
the Steelers completely flip on their head again the next day, and they trade for
Mhm.
Justin Fields, which was, to me, I think, the even crazier part than trading Kenny Pickett itself, because of not only getting Justin Fields, but what they gave up to get him. I mean, you gave up a conditional 6th-round
Mhm.
pick, and the condition is that he basically has to be a starter for half the season. He has to play 51% of the snaps. I mean,
Right.
that's why I made that meme. Talk about a fleece job. Like, are you kidding me? We were
Mhm.
talking about trading for Justin Fields and giving up a 3rd-round pick for him. And people were talking about trading for Justin Fields and giving up more than what we were comfortable with trading for him. And you traded up a conditional 6th? That is absolutely crazy by Omar Khan, and I love
There
it.
was one point this offseason where Mel Kiper was talking about Atlanta trading the 8th overall pick for Justin Fields. And he went for a conditional 6th in 2025. I mean, the thing is patience, right? Like
Yeah.
Omar waited this thing out as long as he could. And it came like 4 or 5 teams along with the Steelers were trying to get Justin. And, if it's true that Ryan Poles and Chicago were trying to give Justin a situation he wanted to go to, okay, then credit to them for doing that and it being Pittsburgh and maybe taking lesser compensation for doing so. But like Philadelphia was trying to get Justin Fields too, ended up trading for Kenny Pickett, lowering the price for Justin Fields. And then we are the ones that get him to replace Kenny Pickett. Like, it is just a funny turn of events that took place within 24 hours for the Steelers to reshape this quarterback room. But I mean, I saw a list, I think it was CBS or something, put out of the top 10 backup quarterbacks in the NFL. Justin Fields, number 1. It's funny because like they might have, average starting quarterback play. Like Russ is probably somewhere within that, like, I don't know, 18 to 25 starter probably going into the season. We'll see if he can go up or down from that. But yeah, I do agree. Like Justin Fields is probably as good of a backup quarterback as you can have. Like he is a very high ceiling, high floor player that the Steelers could plug in should anything happen with Russ.
Which gives a tough question. In a couple months, they're going to have to pick up his 5th option or decide not to.
Oh, they're
And
not picking that up.
Yeah, I was to say it's going to be on the books for over
Actually, let's
$25
bring
million.
Yeah, let's bring in the questions because that kind of goes in, and we have a lot. So like, if we don't start now, we're probably gonna be here until midnight answering these. So, Steelers Network. Hey Zachary, big fan. What's the possibility of the Steelers giving Fields an extension this summer? It's funny because I saw this put out there that they could extend him in 2024, and what I liked the idea of them doing would be a Jordan Love-esque extension where you're talking about a 1-year and like heavily incentive-based deal. If he becomes the starter and like performs well, then he basically makes market value for what he would as at least an average to high end starter, which is what the Packers did with Jordan Love. And it's obviously played out the way that it has. I think what complicates things here is the Russ situation. Like we're talking about this report now coming out about Justin Fields being extended before the season possibly. But Jerry Dulac put out there that the Steelers and Russell Wilson have the intent to sign an extension after 2024, which, by the way, both of these things don't make sense to me. I would not extend either one of them prior to the season. We haven't seen either one of them play a snap in the offense. Why on earth would you be committing to either one for 2025 without seeing either one play football within this offense? So I can't say that it's not on the Steelers' radar. They might do it. They might be interested in doing so. It's not something that I would do. I would feel perfectly comfortable going into this season with neither one being under contract for 2025 quite yet and seeing how it plays out.
I would too. I don't think it makes sense at all to extend them because of the reason you just said. You haven't seen them play it down in your offense. You don't know if any of them are going to have success. So whether it is Russ or Fields, I don't think you should extend either of them going into the season. What's tough is too, because like the way that this played out, it's easy to say, oh, well, Russell Wilson's going to be our starter this season, and then we're just going to move to Justin Fields for our future quarterback. But that's not the way that they're probably looking at it for those two individual guys. That's probably not the way that the Steelers are necessarily looking at it either. Obviously, that could be the succession plan, but there's a very real possibility where you traded for both, but Justin Fields is gone in a year and Russell Wilson is your quarterback of the near future. So while I do not extend either of them preseason, it's tough for me to really see what the full outlook is from the Steelers' perspective of their team in seasons past 2024. I understand it's probably some like wait and see on their part because they haven't seen these guys play. And who knows, Russ could be not that great, and you bring in Justin Fields and he does better, and that changes things. But without seeing anything, I'm sure the Steelers are probably like a lot of us are, and how the two of us are. Like, you just kind of have to wait and see what's going to happen. Because why in the world would you talk an extension already when you just signed him and he hasn't played a snap?
Yeah, I think that would be panicking, to the fact that they don't have a quarterback on the roster right now in 2025. But like, that's fine for me. Like, I'm not panicking to the point where I'm handing out either one a contract extension as we sit here right now. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. 5-star matchup said, "Hey Zach, I'd like to know why you're leaking all this stuff to @CTESPN." Yeah, by the way, there is no way that is Antonio Brown anymore on Antonio Brown's account. Everything is like, might not, like, it's off the wall for sure, but it is like actually makes sense and everything's spelled correctly. And like, so there's no way Antonio Brown sold his Twitter account.
I was going to say, so are you saying someone's running it for him or he got hacked?
No, I think he sold his Twitter account or somebody's running it for him. I don't think he got hacked. I think it's one of those two. But yeah, this CTESPN thing has been hilarious. Also, they like tried to make it seem like they were right about the Justin Fields to the Steelers thing when they have like their posts were about them trading the number 1 overall pick and keeping Justin Fields. So I'm not sure where that was coming from. But yeah, it's fun. Like they're throwing stuff against the wall, and sometimes it's correct. And when it's correct, they want, all the credit for doing so and being first on it. Russell Wilson to the Steelers was one of those cases. They've also said Tyler Boyd's signing with the Steelers. They've said the Steelers and Vikings are talking about Justin Jefferson trade. They've said that Brandon Ayuk to the Steelers is done. So yeah, they're throwing stuff at the wall right now and hoping something sticks. But I'm certainly not leaking. I'm certainly not the person that has been leaking anything to CTESPN.
You know what is Zach, wild to me about you just mentioned it reminded me of something you just said. I saw a TikTok of somebody making fun of a Steelers fan actually who has an NFL TikTok account, and they were making fun of it because on January 7th they posted a video basically making fun of the Bears and making fun and saying that Justin Fields is trash and that the Bears are stuck in a situation that they're not going to be able to get out of. And then it went out of the screenshot or the screen recording, scrolled up on the TikTok, and then clicked on his most recent video. And it's just this dude clapping in a camera with a Steelers jersey on, saying, "We got our guy. We got our future quarterback." And then he changed his bio to Justin Fields number 1 fan. I don't know. I just thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. Fans are wild. They can talk themselves into anything if their team is the one that does it. So Zach says, "Hey Zach, big fan here. Do you think they will be picking up Najee's 5th-year option? If so, what is the holdup on that front?" That's a good question. I do believe that they're going to pick it up. $6.79 million is what that 5th-year option costs. They've talked so highly about him. Mike Tomlin said he's been everything that they need him to be. 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Obviously, the case to not, right, would be you have Jaylen Warren and also running backs. You can find production in other ways as opposed to paying one. I would say as far as the holdup, not entirely sure. I mean, there's no rush for them to do it. They obviously have a deadline that they have to do it by, but that's not, tomorrow or anything like that. Maybe the only thing that I could think of is if they are working or were trying to extend him, maybe to a short-term deal. I'm a little bit weary of that. Obviously without knowing what it looks like 2-3 years, sure. Especially if you can get it like as a lower cap number. Than what the 5th year is. But obviously with as many touches as Najee's got and the type of back that he is, I'm just weary of going long-term with it. As much as I do love the idea of keeping him and Jaylen Warren together and having both those guys around, and maybe that takes some off of him as the years go on, we do see it become closer and closer to a true 50-50 split. I do think Najee gets the 5th-year option. As far as the holdup, that's literally the only thing I could think of is maybe they're working on an extension. If you even want to call it a holdup, because again, it's not like they are, a day away from the deadline of having to pick this up.
Yeah. I've been very long-winded about how I feel about running back extensions. However, I do think that a Najee Harris extension could work depending on the term of it. As long as it is, like you mentioned, a 2 to 3 year deal, I wouldn't mind that. So if he plays in 2024 and then you buy out that 5th-year extension year or that 5th-year option year, and then you add another year or two on top of that. So he'll be 27 for the 2025 season. And so if you did a 3-year contract after this season and get rid of that 5th-year option year, he would be 27 in the first year of the contract, 29 in the last year. I mean, depending on how he deteriorates as a player, it's not terrible for that contract to run out at that time.
No, that's right. So that's probably the perfect time.
Yeah, so I'd be open to an extension for him. He's been really good with the Steelers. He's one of the leaders, I think. Not necessarily always by vocally, but I think offensively, he's one, especially by play. He is one of the leaders in that offense. As far as guys that were brought in as a Steeler, he is the longest tenured Steeler on the offensive side of the football. So I don't think that it's out of the question that an extension would work. I think he's been productive enough. I do think that, and they've gotten creative enough too with the splits of him and Jaylen Warren, where it could work to his benefit in the later parts of his career to keep him as a productive running back as well. I think that the holdup is they probably are working on an extension is what my guess would be.
Yeah, I feel like the least likely thing is them not picking up the option. I feel like it's pick up the option, extend him, decline the option is what's going on. Which even if they decline the option, he's obviously under contract for this year. We're talking about for 2025. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Were you going to say something else on it?
Well, I was going to say, for me, it's tough too to really see them commit to Jaylen Warren being their number one running back. I know a lot of fans have called for that.
Yeah, they'd have to add another
to just absolutely move on from him. They'd have to at least add another one back, if not two. Yeah. I mean, who knows?
Who would be
running back 3 this season?
You know who would be interesting? Actually, before I say, I'll say this type of back because I don't know if he only signed a 1-year deal. But Gus Edwards is like the type of back that I would envision being with him if he signed there. He left the Ravens and signed with the Chargers. 2 years. Dang. Okay. But anyway, that type of back, like of that vein, I think would be a good fit with Jaylen Warren. Kyle says, when will you announce the Debo or Ayuk to the Steelers? When they happen in the short. It's funny because I put out there, don't remember what day of the week it was, that the Steelers, it might have been Monday, now that I'm thinking about it, that the Steelers were interested. No, was it last week? I don't know. The Steelers had called about Deebo Samuel, whatever day that it was. I don't remember exactly what day it was. And what does that mean? They could have just called San Francisco, said, hey, like, that's how GMs do their job. Like, kind of peeling the curtain back in terms of what I've learned here is GMs will pretty much call everywhere and learn which players are available. They wouldn't be doing their job if they weren't. To the extent that the Steelers did about Debo, I'm not entirely sure, because talking with somebody that covers the Niners, they would rather keep Brandon Ayuk. So it seems like they're more so shopping Debo than just listening to trade offers on him. But what complicates it is Ayuk, right after the season last year, has kind of made it seem like he wants out. He was posted on social media. His brother was posted on social media about being done in San Francisco pretty much right after the Super Bowl, where he only had like 3 targets or something like that. Something stupid. Just wasn't a huge factor in the game when he is their best receiver. He is better than Deebo Samuel at this point in both of their careers, especially for that offense. But so Brandon Ayuk probably wants to trade more. They would rather trade Deebo Samuel, which complicates things. I'm sure the Steelers have asked about both. And then Brandon Ayuk going on X for the first time and posting since the weekend of last year's NFL draft to tag Mike Tomlin and say, heard we twins was good with eye emojis. certainly got the fan base going, thinking that Brandon Ayuk was being traded here. I'm not saying it's completely off the table. I would be surprised if they go that big at the receiver position. But man, I love it. Like, don't get me wrong. I think that they definitely have other areas of need that I'd be weary about taking the draft capital away from. I don't necessarily care about the contract. They can pay him $25 million a year, especially with basically nothing being committed quarterback right now. And then you got Cam Hayward coming off the books. Like, they can make it work financially for sure. I'm more so concerned about the draft picks being utilized. But I love Brandon Ayuk as a player. I think he's top 10 in the league. So if they were to do it, I certainly wouldn't be complaining. So yeah, I'll announce a trade when it happens, but I understand why this is being asked specifically about Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. I think they'd rather trade Deebo. I think it's more likely Ayuk is traded.
I like it. I mean, that was more so directed at you. So
it was. And while we're talking about this, yesterday he was hearing if they could pry him out of Washington, but they're going to take a quarterback number 2 overall. So, are you going to take Terry McLaurin away from that rookie quarterback and make his situation worse? Probably not. So yeah, it seems like that was shut down as soon as it got started, but the Steelers asked about him, which again, just goes to show how wide ranging this receiver search has been for them.
They have asked about a lot of good receivers. They talked to Romeo Odunze. I mean, this the extent to where they've looked for receivers has been short of nothing. So I think that there's going to be a splash somewhere, whether it's going to be in a draft or in free agency. There's got to be some sort of splash at free agency, and not that like Tyler Boyd wouldn't be a splash. I think that would be a good signing, but like. I do think that you got to get some sort of bigger fish in there, and I'm intrigued to see where it's going to come from.
Here's what I'll say. I still think Tyler Boyd is the most likely. I'll say that. I think if it's Tyler Boyd or Josh Reynolds in free agency, they will take a receiver earlier than we would thought that they would. If they make a trade for Brandon Ayuk, they might take a receiver at some point, but like it's not going to be early for sure.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Kyle, obviously stay right here and we'll keep you updated with everything that's going on with the receiver search. Steelers fan, I wonder what their question's about. What do you think the main realistic goal for the Steelers is this year? AFC Championship game, ? Just a playoff game. What do you think? I mean, their goal
is to win the Super Bowl.
But you said realistic. I think it's realistic to be in play for the division. I think it's realistic to expect them to be in the playoffs. Can they finally win that elusive playoff game? That playoff win that has eluded them since 2016. Now, that's not the goal to win a single playoff game, but I think for fans, because it's been a stretch without having one, that is probably where the bar is at right now, is we got to see a playoff win. I think a lot of fans would be satisfied with losing in the divisional round as opposed to the wild card weekend this year, myself included, because where this roster is at right now. Again, like, can Russell Wilson not fully turn back the clock, but provide good enough quarterback play for them to go on a little bit of a run? Maybe, but like the rest of this roster, the defense is still going to be pretty good. What's the line going to be like? Are there enough weapons on this offense? Like we're talking about right now, George Pickens and who in this receiver room. So I don't know. I think a playoff win would satisfy me this upcoming season.
I've said it before. I said it originally a couple months ago when we were talking about the quarterback options and what the differences would be of those options. Said it a couple weeks ago too when I reiterated that, and I'll reiterate it now. I think that if you were able to get to the playoffs with a combination of Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph, your expectation at that point should be, if you bring in a guy like Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, is to win a playoff game. I think that bringing in both, that should be your quote unquote like expectation. That should be your goal as a fan. And I think that's a realistic option. I think that's the next step, because if you can get there with the quarterbacks that you had last year, slightly improvement. And obviously we've got to see what the offensive line will shape out to be and what these receivers are going to do. But man, you got to expect that they can at least repeat what they did last year, if not improve upon that. So I do think that the playoff win, while it still is a lofty goal in my eyes, just because of how good the AFC is, I understand that like it shouldn't be a lofty goal to win just one game. But when you're talking about some of the quarterbacks you have in the AFC, some of the teams that you have in the AFC, it's tough to win just one game. And so while it could be still considered lofty, I do think that that's probably, at least from a fan perspective, what should be the expectation of your goal for the team that's next. Obviously, you always want to be Super Bowl or bust, but for taking a step forward, I do think it's realistic that they could win a playoff game.
Yeah. J Dub here says, which wide receiver would you rather have given the potential trade value / contracts? Ayuk, Jefferson, or McLaurin? Well, again, it sounds like the McLaurin thing's off the table, but maybe it's not. Maybe they'll still keep poking around there. Jefferson's not happening. I mean, like, what are we talking about? 2 firsts plus something else going the other way to Minnesota. And then you're going to pay him like $30 million probably a season. Like, Minnesota's not trading him, but obviously if he were available, he's the guy. I mean, he's the number 1 wide receiver on the planet. So really the question is Ayuk for what he would cost plus an extension, or Terry McLaurin with what he would cost plus an extension. Brandon Ayuk is 5 years younger than Terry McLaurin is. So obviously McLaurin, a little less contract control right now than probably what Ayuk's deal will be. You'd have 2 years. Honestly, pretty palatable cap hits when you take into consideration everything and where the receiver market's going to be. I expect the cap to continue to go up, though. Brandon Ayuk's kind of my guy. Like, this is coming from an Ohio State guy that loves Terry McLaurin too, but I just feel like Brandon Ayuk can seamlessly fit into any offense. To me, there's not questions about what he's going to be like. I know that acquiring any one of these guys probably complicates what an extension for George Pickens could look like, if that would even be on the table. But yeah, if I have the opportunity to acquire Brandon Ayuk for anything similar to Terry McLaurin, it's going to be Brandon Ayuk.
Out of the two, I'd pick Ayuk as well, especially seeing the way he plays in Heinz Field. I mean, look at the opening day game last year. So I would pick Brandon Ayuk out of those options. Justin Jefferson, I mean, obviously, if you could get that guy, sure. But I just don't think, especially at the cost, it's realistic. But from where they are in their careers, I like Terry McLaurin a lot, but I'd rather have Ayuk.
Yeah, again, 5 years younger. Obviously, the trade compensation is going to be a lot different, and the cap hits are different. You get this. We included this on the Steelers one, but it doesn't have to be specific to the Steelers. You're building a basketball team solely out of current Pittsburgh athletes. Who are your starting 5?
Oh, okay. So, out of current Pittsburgh athletes, okay.
Darnell Washington is on there for sure.
I would say Darnell Washington's definitely on there
for sure.
Is O'Neal Cruz on there?
I like it.
6,
and I'll
7
try to
and
include one. I'm going to include one from everyone, at least one from everyone. But I'm going to
hockey player are you gonna get?
I know. Justin Fields at point.
Ryan Graves?
No, absolutely not.
I'm just thinking height, man. I mean, listen, if you're going Justin Fields at the point, then your shooting guard has to be a Penguin. Otherwise, you're saying that you're one of your forwards or your center is going to be a Penguin. There's no chance.
I mean, should I have Sid as the point guard?
That's probably a better option.
Sid is the point. Justin Fields is the shooting guard. O'Neal and Darnell are going to be the power forward and center.
Who's our big? Broderick?
No, I'm saying power forward and center.
Oh, power forward and center. Or who's our small forward then?
Yeah. And we've got at least one from everyone, so this could be anybody.
I gotta look up something. This is tough.
Maybe Joey. I'm just trying to think like even if he's just a defensive specialist, small forward, a guy that can guard multiple positions, play on the wing. I'm between Joey and I'm between George. I think I'm going back to the Steelers pipeline for the small forward.
I'm going back to the Steelers pipeline, but I'm looking for a little more size too than Joey. Maybe I shouldn't be.
Fair.
But I mean, TJ, that small forward, 6'4", 252.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably given up some height to a small forward, but
so is Joey.
Yeah, I know, but he's got the reach.
Yeah, Alex Highsmith.
Yeah, I'm Joey and George. Flip a coin. I'll go Joey because I want the defense.
Okay.
Interesting question.
Actually, scratch that. I'm going Isaiah Loudermilk. He's 6'7", 293.
As the small forward, or you switching him
to? Let's see.
So you can put O'Neal at small.
I'll put Oni up the small. I'll move Darnell to power forward, and I'll have Isaiah Loudermilk be the center.
I'm picturing him like you ever see the movie Rebound?
Yeah.
Big Wes. Yeah. Isaiah Loudermilk in the paint. Lonnie says, what's the Steelers' evaluation of Calvin Austin? To me, it's still unknown. Yeah, man. I mean, you're going into to year 3 with a relatively unknown commodity in him. We talked about him last year, obviously, basically being a rookie because he lost his rookie season due to injury. And you just have no clue what he is. I mean, he's a lottery ticket, but like, did we get a full scope of what he could be in Matt Canada's offense? Like, I don't know. I feel like he was kind of pigeonholed to be just like this gadget type receiver. To me, he's a better route runner than that. Like, I mean, he was crossing dudes up at the Senior Bowl. And again, you're talking about making the transition to NFL, the pros. But I feel like he's been not underutilized because it's not necessarily like I thought he'd be a high volume guy, but I think he's kind of been pigeonholed into this role that I don't necessarily think is fair. And I think within this offense, I'm going to throw out a name. I will see if you remember from his time in Tennessee. He has also spent time with the Lions. Khalif Raymond, a receiver that Arthur Smith had in Tennessee. I feel like he could almost be used in that way. Like, he's not going to be a high volume guy, but maybe he gets like 3-4 touches a game. And at any time, it could be a house call. So I think he's a super explosive player that I'm not necessarily sure how to fully evaluate, but I think there's a role to be carved out for him if the offensive coordinator is creative enough.
I know one thing that I was looking forward to whenever we were watching him in his first camp with the Steelers, and I feel like most people look at Calvin Austin and they just see the top end speed and the ability to take the top off of a defense. But one thing that I would love if they were able to utilize him more in is inside the red zone, especially inside like the 10-yard line. I think that with his quick footwork and his agility that he has, side to side, he can get a lot quicker than a lot of those guys. And I specifically remember seeing clips of him in Steelers camp beating guys on the goal line for touchdowns. And I feel like that's another space that he could be utilized as well, not just for utilizing his just straight line speed, but just how quick he is side to side, the kind of footwork that he can have. I feel like that's something that the Steelers haven't tapped into yet, that they could this upcoming season, especially with the lack of wide receivers that they currently have. Also, speaking of which, I don't even think we've mentioned Van Jefferson. Have we? Since that's happened?
No, probably not. Yeah, I mean, I view that as an Allen Robinson replacement. Artie Smith, they traded for him in Atlanta last year. Obviously didn't have a ton of, body of work there in Atlanta with him, but Clearly liked him enough to want to bring him over here. Really good blocking receiver. But yeah, I mean, he's not changing their plans at the position. Surely, like you're either still drafting one pretty high or bringing in another.
That was just a wide receiver
so,
body that I thought of that we have still.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think he provides something. Again, I think he's probably an upgraded version of Allen Robinson. Like there's still some athletic juice to tap into, unlike Allen Robinson. So I'm fine with the signing. It's just it can't obviously prevent them from doing other things at the position.
Got to shout out his son's name though, Champ Jefferson. His son was born the day
that's
they
right.
won the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah. Man, what a moment.
Named him Champ.
And then the last question here from Dan says, Rowe coming back, Eric Rowe. I wouldn't surprise me. I think that it's probably him or Trenton Thompson as the fourth safety. They'll bring one of those guys back. Heck, they might bring both back to camp, but I can't see both making the roster. I think they'll be competing for one spot. You obviously got Minka, you got KZ, and they just brought in Deshaun Elliott. So I think that there's probably enough room for at least one of those guys to be on the active roster. I almost want it to be like I like both of them. I think they both showed some good things. I would probably lean Rowe. I think Rowe can also play in the slot if you need him to. He's played both safety spots. A little bit more experience. I think he's going into like his 8th or 9th season. Like he's been around. I think people think that don't really realize that, but he's a former Patriot, former Dolphin. He's been around the block a little bit. So I lean Rowe over Trenton Thompson, but to me, yeah, it'd be one of those two guys that they would like to bring back as a fourth option.
2024 would be his 10th season that he's been
all right. So
NFL.
yeah, I undersold him by a year or two. Yeah, I thought it was 8 or 9.
Yeah. No, I think that's a guy that you could bring back. I'm really intrigued to see how they're going to approach the safety position, like for the rest of free agency / the draft. See what they do to bring in guys. Obviously, they brought in Deshaun Elliott, but I want to see how they bring in some different guys to complement those players. Safety is an interesting position to me because we had some guys that we were looking at for that position, and those guys are going to be signing elsewhere or have signed elsewhere and didn't really do some of the things that we would have at least liked or not necessarily expected, but liked. So I'm curious to see
there's
what
still a ton on
do.
the market though. Like,
yeah, I know.
I mentioned this to Alan. Is it possible that they cut KZ and still bring in another safety from this?
That could be the case. I have a hard time seeing them drafting one. Looking at the safeties in the draft,
no, terrible.
I don't think they're going to draft any.
Tyler Nubin is considered the number one. Not to say that everything falls onto the relative athletic score, but he tested today. His RAS was under 3.
To give you perspective, for those who are Pitt fans, Keaton Slovis's RAS was like a 9.7. So,
yeah. And again, that doesn't paint the full picture, but I don't think it was a very highly viewed draft class to begin with. Cam Kitchens, Javon Bullard is actually the one that I really like, and I don't think he's a safety in the NFL. I think he's gonna play slot. So him, Tyke Smith, Caden Stearns, like there's some intriguing guys, but
Cole Bishop from Utah. The only reason I know him is because he's from Utah.
Mm-hmm. I believe his cousin watches the afternoon drive.
Oh, does he?
It would be very weird if they lied about this. But when Alan was down at the Senior Bowl, somebody commented on our YouTube and was like, "Hey, make sure you link up with my cousin and ask him a couple questions. He's a safety out of Utah. His name's Cole Bishop." And I was like, "Okay, like why would they make this up? Like this is a very weird lie if they are lying about this." So they might watch the afternoon drive. Which that would make it really cool if he did become a Steeler, but I don't know if I really necessarily want. I like Cole Bishop as a player, but I don't want them to draft safety. Anything else?
No. A lot of Steelers questions.
Appreciate that.
Very intrigued to see. I don't think that we will have whether it's the draft or any other time this free agency still. I don't think that we are going to have a wilder weekend than we just had for a while when it comes to the Steelers.
Probably not. I do think by the time that we talk next week, there is another receiver on the roster. I will make that prediction. Also starting this weekend, I'm going to be doing a live stream on this channel, just kind of talking about like draft stuff or free agency, whatever's going on with the Steelers, every either Saturday or Sunday morning, just to put out some more content for you guys for the last month or so before the drafts. If Tyler's ever available and wants to come on, obviously he can join me as well. But a month from tomorrow, right, is the NFL draft. I think it's about like 4 weeks from tomorrow, 5 weeks from tomorrow, 4 weeks from tomorrow, something, 5 weeks from tomorrow. Is the NFL draft. And gonna be doing a live stream on the channel as well. Again, I mentioned it last week, but we will see what Tyler's availability looks like. He'll be in Europe during the NFL draft, but I will for sure be here. I put out a poll for which jersey you guys would want between the two quarterbacks. Justin Fields handily won, but I realized, you know what, like we don't have to do this. Like it will be of choice for Steelers jerseys, other than as tradition stands. We have to make sure that one of those jerseys is whoever the Steelers select with the first round pick. And you guys have to guess who that first round pick is going to be eligible for that one. But yeah, we're going to do a couple other jersey giveaways. Some tickets are going to be given away around the 412 merch, a Terry Bradshaw Funko Pop. Here's the kicker. You got to be in the stream to win them. So we're going to be doing a live stream night 1 and night 2 of the draft, April 25th and 26th. Be here about 15-ish minutes before the draft kicks off. I will be here the whole time. Friend Sarge will be here. Drew, Joe, maybe Platt, Tyler. Again, we will see what that availability looks like.
We'll see. I mean, I'm like 5 hours ahead in France at the time,
yeah.
so
right. So not to, you don't have to put your entire schedule for your Europe trip out there, but I assume you'll be in France for both of those, right? Like it's not like France the one night and then somewhere else night 2.
Well, let me see. We are in France the day we get there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. France. Yes, I believe the first couple days are in France. So night 1 is definitely going to be in France. Night 2, we might be in Germany, but I think it might be France still. I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Well, either way, we'll see when and if Tyler does show up. The Steelers obviously selecting that pick number 20. Kind of complicates things, I believe. I don't think that makes it a better situation. Would it be better if they picked it like number 1 than it, or what?
Yeah,
would be
because
the
I
best
know at least
scenario?
I'm joining.
Yeah.
Because at number 1, I know, okay, I got to hop on at like 12:45 a.m. because the draft starts at 1 a.m. France time. With the pick being at 20, depending on how long or short people are taking with their picks, I have no idea what time it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm guessing probably 3:30-ish, maybe.
So like 2.5 hours into the draft. Yeah,
I don't know. It depends, man. It either seems like they've, like 2 years ago, it was really sped up. Seemingly, I don't remember how fast last year's night 1 went, but I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. But again, be here for it. Hit that notification bell. And you guys will know exactly when we go live or when we post another video. Hey, if the Steelers add another receiver over the weekend, I'm going to have to post a video about that. I'm going to start doing more reaction stuff. And again, if Tyler's around, he will also be joining me to do those. He was actually supposed to be on here for the Pickett trade, but did not work out for him to be on for that video. So I just uploaded it on my own. But anyways, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Like I said, hit us in the comments with your thoughts on anything that we talked about, questions for future shows, all that good stuff. Leave us a 5-star review if you were listening somewhere else. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, if you prefer the listening platforms. Everything custom designs in the description. Our friend Haley Wagner, small business, t-shirts, hoodies, all that good stuff besides hats. You can get basically anything customized. There's even some around the 412 stuff that you can get. And again, I would love to bring back the Trust the Buck and Process Design. Not that this is the Pirates show, but I mentioned it on there as well. I would love to rejuvenate that and bring it back for 2024 with there being some optimism with the organization right now. And then, of course, our sponsor, Teach Barbershop, the logo right above Tyler if you were watching on YouTube. Also going across the bottom ticker literally right now, sponsored by Teach Barbershop. Teach Barbershop is located at 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Christian, Tony, Ashley, they do a really good job over there. Old school feel. I don't think I've gotten my haircut anywhere else. So when did Christian open that shop? Probably 2018 or 19. Been going there since. And he sponsored this show basically since he started the business as well. So again, Teach Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. That's all we got, folks. Thanks again. Like I said, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you guys know when we post any content. If you are a Penguins or Pirates fan, be sure to check out those shows coming out later in the week as well. And they should be, maybe something should be popping up on your screen right now. I don't know if it will be those, depending on what time you're watching this video. But either way, for Tyler, for Smitty, this has been Around the 412 Steelers show. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.